Hi everyone, I'm Kaylin and I'm going to be starting off our presentation. Ria and I are going to discuss hearing impairments and how they have the tendency to affect cognitive function. Among other things, we will be explaining different kinds of hearing impairments and how educators should aid students with this kind of disability. IDEA states that hearing impairment, whether permanent or fluctuating, adversely affects a child's educational performance. Deafness is defined as a hearing impairment that is so severe that the child is impaired in processing linguistic information through hearing with or without amplification. This also means a partial or total loss of the ability to hear. Now here are some statistics on prevalencies of hearing impairment. About 1 in every 1,000 babies is born profoundly deaf, and another 2 or 3 out of 1,000 have a less severe hearing loss. Nearly 25% of children with hearing impairments have additional disabilities. In 2012, approximately 1.2% of students with disabilities aged 6 to 21 were categorized as having a hearing impairment. Of the almost 6 million students who received special education services in the 2003-2004 school year, almost 72,000, which is 1.2%, of them received services due to their hearing impairments. Now I'm going to explain the different types of hearing loss. The first is conductive hearing loss. This is when the outer or middle ear are damaged or blocked. The image here has those areas encircled. The damage does not allow sounds to successfully travel into the inner ear. This damage can sometimes be corrected through surgery. The next type of hearing impairment that people suffer from is defined as sensorineural damage. This is when the auditory nerve, or cochlea, or the inner ear is damaged. This slide shows where the damage is. People who suffer from this kind of injury can only hear specific frequencies. This impairment is more difficult to fix than conductive hearing loss. Mixed hearing loss is a combination of both conductive and sensorineural damage. Central hearing disorder is another type where there is a dysfunction in the central auditory system between the brainstem and the auditory cortex in the brain. This slide shows where the central auditory nervous system is, which is where that damage is. Obviously, it can be difficult to determine whether or not a child has a hearing impairment. We can't see what's going on, but there are some warning signs for this disability. Academically, the warning signs are limited vocabulary, misunderstanding figurative language, delayed reading ability, and unintelligible speech. There are also some warning signs that can be seen in the child's behavior. These include immature social skills, remaining alone when other children are playing in a group, or being overly domineering within a conversation. Conversely, they could never speak up or take any sort of leadership role with their peers. So a quick side note. While researching teaching standards pertaining to teaching deaf students, I found that there was a study done having to do with how qualified some special education teachers are. The suggestion was that special education teachers, particularly those teaching students with hearing impairments, should have general and special education training in order to be more successful educators.
Hearing impairments can affect the student in various ways. The most common effect presented is delayed or impaired development of the student's speech and language. Students with hearing impairments exhibit difficulty learning vocabulary, grammar, word order, idiomatic expressions, and other aspects of verbal communication. Hearing impairments can also pose threats to a student's social emotional development. Since there can be significant communication barriers for students with hearing impairments, they tend to avoid group play and activities. This in turn hinders development of their social skills as well as building positive relationships, which can ultimately lead to other issues for the student, such as behavioral and emotional problems. For students with hearing impairments, the inability to hear language inhibits them from properly receiving and processing the information delivered during instruction. Students with hearing impairments thus often exhibit delays in academic achievement. It should be noted, however, that this typically is not due to any intelligence issues. To help with creating inclusivity and providing access to the general curriculum, specialized personnel who are trained to work with students with hearing impairments are available to provide services. These personnel include audiologists, teachers of the hearing impaired and special education teachers, speech-language pathologists, and interpreters who administer communication processes such as sign language and repetition. In addition to specialized personnel, assistive technology has changed the lives of many students with hearing impairments. Some traditional examples are speakers, headphones, closed captioning, and hearing aids. More modern ones involve computers, from desktops to smartphones. Software programs such as speech-to-text and mobile applications such as auditory training games provide necessary accommodations and services. Some less familiar assistive technologies are alerting devices, which are alarms that use vibration and light instead of sound, auditory training devices, which transmit sound more directly to the individual, telecommunication devices, which are used primarily during phone calls, and cochlear implants, which are surgically implanted devices that replace the function of the damaged inner ear. There are many combinations of tips and strategies to best meet the needs of students with hearing impairments. Be informed on the assistive technologies available and how they're used in order to differentiate which ones will best suit your students. Use alternative communication methods, such as written lectures or sign language, to improve the student's comprehension of the instruction. Be aware of and utilize the special education services available. Incorporate specialized personnel into the curriculum through co-teaching strategies. Be cognizant of classroom seating arrangements. Ensure students with hearing impairments are placed in positions with the least amount of barriers and restrictions in order to best hear and/or see the instruction being given. Some additional things to know are that students with hearing impairments tend to rush through their work. Encourage them to slow down. They oftentimes have cognitive issues as well. Mediated learning, which is similar to differentiated instruction, is an effective strategy to address this. The level of hearing loss is not a clear indication of a student's ability level. Each individual responds differently to their hearing impairment. Students with hearing impairments are unique in that no matter what degree of hearing loss they have, it all comes down to the individual. Two students may have the exact same hearing profile but require completely different accommodations. Therefore, in addition to being knowledgeable on strategies for teaching students with hearing impairments, it's crucial for teachers to get to know them personally to create the best possible learning environment. Thank you for watching.